You don't need a complicated trading system to become profitable. In fact, some of the most successful traders I know don't use dozens of indicators. They've just mastered the secret of being able to stick to one simple system. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. I'm going to break down how 30 days of trading discipline completely changed my results and gave me my best month ever. It's the same approach that can take you from inconsistent losses to building real trading profits, like it did for me. And this is kind of what it looks like to stick with a discipline plan to a T, because you can produce results exactly like this. This is my best month trading by far. And I was able to end this month of June with a 64% trade win rate. And also I was able to end the day green 64% of the time, meaning I have a lot more green days than I do red days. And also my trade win percentage, I win a lot more trades than I lose. The thing I also like to give kudos to is how nicely I'm able to kind of keep my winners and losers kind of at the same range. I'm able to somewhat make just as much as I am in my winners compared to how much I'm losing per trade. And if we look at the entire month as a whole, I really only had 4 red days to where I got negative points. And on some of these red days, I might have made some mistakes, or the price action was just not in my favor. But let's just kind of go through some of these days just so you can see my exact system and so I can show you my trade setups and what exactly I'm looking for in the market. Now, first, let's go over my losers. Starting off with this Wednesday on June 4th, we took one trade and we ended up losing this trade. And if we look at the pre-market, I mean, on the 1 hour chart, we see that we are pretty much building higher highs and higher lows, and that you pretty much want to be long. But the tricky thing here is that you need to be long in the right spot. Notice where we are on the 1 hour chart. We're up where we just made basically these recent higher highs, and we're also at our price level to where we previously rejected and made a pivot lower, to where back here we rejected and went lower, and then right here as well in this pivot we went lower. So we can't really buy all the way up here, and we really need to be picky with our buy price. And sadly today I did not choose the right buy price, and I was actually very impatient getting into this long. As you see here, I took the bounce play off of the New York VWAP and then was punished for it, not because it was a bad setup, but because the macro conditions were just not adding up for this setup to work out. I mean, basically because of what I just explained to you, we're basically buying into a zone that was previously rejected through previous pivots that we've seen on the 1 hour chart. And you can also see this a little bit more in depth on the 15-minute chart as well. And then let's go into Friday, the next red day that we had. And again, with this day, I believe we only took one trade. Yeah, one trade. And then now we're starting to see some type of consolidation, some type of sideways movement. We're identifying that we are struggling to break above this level here. So we just need to be cautious. But again, I do make the mistake of buying too high and not being patient enough or disciplined enough to allow price to come back down to the location to where I know buys are actually going to work out. And so if we look at the trade that we took here, we took pretty much the same exact trade as we did Wednesday, not really learning our lesson here. We're taking the bounce off the New York VWAP. And again, not that this is a bad setup, because this is honestly a really great setup that can pay a lot of money as long as you take it in the proper locations on the charts. But whenever we're buying this high up, when previously we've rejected this price level, you're bound to lose. And that's exactly what I did. I took the loss. I was actually able to cut the trade early just because, I mean, buyers are clearly not present. They're dipping below the New York VWAP, and they're just not in right now. And it's indicating that price definitely wants to move lower before it moves higher. And that's actually what it actually does. We start to build lower highs throughout the session, and the shorts paid, but the longs not so much. And then now if we go over to our next red day, which is the next Friday on June 13th, we did take a couple of trades here, and we're going to break this down because now we've had our pullback. Now we're at a location to where if you are looking for longs, they could look good, but the only thing is that on the 1 hour, look what price has shifted to. Rather than making these higher lows like we've been doing and higher highs, we're now kind of starting to shift structure. We had a market structure shift since we broke this lower high right here, or sorry, this higher low right here. And now we're starting to make lower lows and lower highs. And this is the pivot that we've started to kind of like shift the market conditions, right? So now we're making a lower low, lower high, lower low, and lower high. Again, we just really want to be selective as to where price ideally would like to make the lower high. And this is where it gets tricky. And this is where you have to be disciplined and not have FOMO and just be so desperate to take a trade in the moment. Because if so, you're going to get caught, just like how I did. Because I told myself that, hey, this surely is the top. I mean, look how we just rejected the previous days in New York. But notice what we've done after we rejected the previous days in New York. Buyers stepped in at the start of the future session VWAP, indicating that this is not our top and that price may want to go even higher to maybe the start of week VWAP to make a lower high to continue to trend lower. But again, I was so focused on the shorts, not being disciplined enough as to reading and reacting what price action is doing, and I was just trying to force my own will onto the markets, and I got punished off of this. This is just short. This is honestly terrible, and there's no explanation as to why I should have taken this short. But again, notice how in all three of my trades that we lost this month so far is that my trade location, the setups aren't terrible except for this one. This was a horrible setup, but my trade locations are what really is causing me to take losses. And I need to fix that going forward. And let's go over the last red day to where I had it, which is the last day of June, June 30th. And let's see why I actually lost on this day. So as we see, we're now towards the end of the month. Buyers stepped in, reclaimed the start of month VWAP, and then we just chugged and ripped higher. I mean, these types of trends are just so nice to trade, honestly, because you just got to hit buy and then you'd win the majority of your trades no matter where you get in. Which is kind of nice as long as you give your stops some breathing room, right? But these types of trends, man, are awesome. But again, we're now at the tippy top. We're starting to see price slow down, consolidate, moving a little sideways. So we have to be a bit patient. We understand that we're kind of topping out here and price is starting to fall on the 15-minute chart, as we can see. So we have to ask ourselves, if we want to be a buyer, where is a good spot to be a buyer? Well, you can consider if buyers stepping in here, we can be a buyer there. But all the way up here, it's a little tough to be a buyer. So let's see the mistakes that we made. We took a trade in the overnight session to where we actually did take a dub. And this dub was a fairly nice dub because we're coming off of basically making a higher low on the higher time frame. We broke back above the previous day's New York VWAP. We come down, retest it. Then the market closes. When the market opens back up, we gapped up. And I like how we just strongly make a push higher, retest, hold the daily. Sellers try to take it once. Quickly, buyers reclaimed it. Sellers try to take it again. Buyers quickly reclaimed it. So I then get in long. And this was a very nice long. And then I try for a second time to see if buyers are going to defend and hold the daily VWAP. And then I actually am able to get in and then get a pretty decent price here. I'm not too sure if I got out before 1 hour. Yeah, so I was able to kind of get out right here as price just started slowing down. I was already up green on the day, 2 winning trades. I didn't really need the full 1 hour, especially on the higher time frame, guys. Look at this trade location, okay? We just recently made a higher high in the general big trend. So I don't want to marry this trade because I know, okay, we just made a higher high. We could want to pull back or we could continue checking higher. But at the end of the day, I'm green. I don't want to give up the profits I've made. Let me just snag my bag and get out. So this was some dang good trading. But now let's look at the trades that I took later on. And this is a trade that actually held into the New York session that I was punished for. Because like I said before, we just made a higher high. It can keep chugging higher as it did. But at this point, once I start seeing it move sideways and sellers starting to defend this top area right here, and then I'm seeing the trade location, okay, we're really high up. Why am I so tempted to take a reclaimed trade here? This just looks like a trap, and I, in fact, did get trapped taking this trade because, again, trade location is not where it needs to be for me to consider taking this long. Like I said, you can see many setups all around the charts, but if you're not taking them in the correct locations, I mean, you're just going to get trapped and you're going to get punished like I did here and like I've done for the past 3 days of my for the other 3 days that I took losses on in the month of June. And then the last trade that I actually took on the month of June, this was honestly just full on tilt.
I was just completely tilted. Price action is really bad. I mean, we kind of have a pop lower and then just we're kind of like moving sideways. And then I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just trying to make my back. I'm trying to make back my green because, I had some good overnight trades and I took one stupid long in the morning. I should have seen the shorts. And now I'm going to try to take a short. And it's just like my mind's racing everywhere. And I identify that tilt. So I just cut the trade. I'm like, you know what? I'm not in my best performance right now. I'm just going to quit. I had a great month. I had a good run. I'm ending the month with 4 red days. Not bad. Okay. 64% win rate. We're chilling. Now, let's look at some things that we actually did fairly well, because now that we've identified our issue, let's look at this week to where I just kept winning and winning and winning, right? To see why. So, first starting off with Monday the 23rd, we took one trade this day, and let's see why I took this trade. Okay. So, right now, we're seeing on the 1 hour chart, previously we were making lower lows and lower highs, but price opened up making a lower low on this downtrend, and we're trying to reclaim these VWAPs. It seems like sellers are stepping in here, but if we look later on, I mean, look who's holding the month-to-date VWAP after we broke out and retested it. That's really interesting. I'm going to hold more weight to the monthly VWAP than I am to the previous day's New York VWAP, because the bigger trend is going to triumph the smaller trends. The smaller trends are basically like, if we wanted to sell this, I mean, you definitely can, but you have to understand when this is likely to stop and where we're likely to reverse. And that's where you have to have that top-down analysis to be able to see. So I know, okay, I noticed that buyers are stepping in here at the month-to-date VWAP, so let me be a little careful. And then on the 15-minute chart, we can see this in a bit more detail. We did previously reject the previous day's New York VWAP, but I'm not incredibly terrified because we have not yet went up to the week-to-date VWAP, and I know that's a key location to where sellers can step in, especially that buyers are stepping in here now. If we remember the Friday to where I actually tried to predict the shorts, the same exact thing happened on this day. Let's take a quick look, guys. So if we look at the short that I took, notice how pretty much the same exact thing happened. We rejected the previous day's New York VWAP, but look, this was just a higher high in the mini uptrend that we've been doing. And we can look at this uptrend as it's just a pullback in the bigger downtrend. So we can still ride the shorts, but you need to be disciplined and have that discipline to not take a short in order to see and notice when it is a good idea, where we should actually look for this short. Because as of right now, I mean, buyers are still in, because in the general, in the big picture downtrend that we're doing, we are currently not moving lower, but pulling back to then form that lower high to continue lower. You need to understand, this technical analysis and how to read this price action in order to try to time your trades, because honestly, timing is everything in trading. So we saw from Friday that I tried to predict the top and I got in way too early just because I was impatient, undisciplined. But I learned the lesson on this Monday, June 23rd. And as we just saw, like, it looks like the same exact thing that happened. Sellers rejected the previous day's New York VWAP. But look, we just made a lower low. Now we're in the pullback stage of this big, huge downtrend, right? And we're still pulling back. We think sellers could step in here. If they want to step in here, they need to take the daily VWAP in order to move lower for this to be confirmed a lower high. But they never actually take this key level. Buyers step in, take price above, and then look where we're at. Look where sellers actually step in after we see buyers starting to slow down, prices starting to move sideways. I then hit the shorts off of a key level, not in no man's land, but off of the key level to where it makes sense, to where sellers have previously stepped in to reverse the trend. And that's exactly what I do, because I'm basically timing the market. I have that discipline to wait. I don't want to be in short anywhere around here because I know that this can be short-lived. In order for us to properly validate this short off the previous day's New York VWAP, I know that sellers have to take the start of the future session VWAP, but they never do. So I'm patient, and I'm glad I stayed out because I know where sellers stepped in previously. Well, sellers, and we're forming these lower highs off the weekly VWAP. So I'm going to wait until price actually gets to the weekly VWAP, especially when they just stepped in here, when buyers just stepped in here to continue making these higher highs and higher lows in the very short intraday trend. So we're having the discipline of waiting, being patient, and letting price get to the proper trade location for us to actually be able to look for a setup. It goes first, make sure you're in the proper location, then you look for a setup. You're not just trying to look for a setup anywhere on the chart. You just want to be patient, be disciplined, and then wait for your setup to present in the correct location on the charts. And then if we just look at the rest of the week, let's see here. We did take 2 overnight trades, and these overnight trades were amazing. We actually have we ended up having a market structure shift because we shifted. We're switching trends. We broke the previous lower high, and now we're starting to build higher highs and higher lows. So now longs are definitely in play, and we're going to go ahead and take some longs. As we see on the 15-minute chart, I mean, we're just making higher highs and higher lows, and we've been making higher highs and higher lows, and we're just kind of moving higher. And then so going over, I think I have the trades marked up on the Wednesday, actually. Yeah, because those are overnight trades. So going up on the Wednesday, we're going to see the trades I took on the top 1 accounts. Again, we just made a higher high. Price pulls back. Buyers are stepping in here at the previous day's New York and started future session VWAP. If sellers wanted to take this thing lower, guess what happened, guys? We would have taken this key level, but we don't. Look how we move sideways on the 15-minute. These are 15-minute bars. This is like 15, 30, 45. That's already an hour. This is like 2 hours of just sideways price action telling us that buyers are defending this strongly. So therefore, I can confidently take a long. So we pop higher. We're not yet making a higher high yet on the bigger time frame. So we come back down, retest the previous days in New York. I get in. I then cut the trade early, which I should never have done because the trade was never invalidated. But then I get right back in as soon as kind of like buyers start to get some fuel again. And then I'm able to kind of like make back this like small micro loss and then make some green on that. And this was like a textbook, beautiful trade of what I want to see if I'm taking an overnight trade. Even though the overnight trades are a little bit annoying because they do take longer to take. But hey, it is what it is, right? And then so now we're seeing that buyers are strongly stepping in, making higher highs, higher lows. They're not. This uptrend is super strong. And then so I'm going to try to get in off the daily. I don't want to take the New York bounce because, again, I don't want to buy the highest price. I want to allow price to pull back a little bit. And then we start to see buyers kick in here. So then I'm able to sniper price. My entry was pretty aggressive, but this was taken on Apex Combine account. And this was like the last trade I needed to pass to get that to funded. So I have an Apex funded account, just have not activated yet. But anyways, this was a textbook trade. The bounce off of the daily VWAP, and it worked out perfectly. But again, I have to be, if I'm being completely honest with myself, is this pullback enough in order for me to validate this trade as a valid setup? Maybe not. Because if we look at the higher time frame, where are we buying? We're buying at the highest price of this trend. So it is a little bit dangerous here for me to take a setup, and I'm acknowledging that. And even though I wasn't punished for this, I do still consider this to be a bit undisciplined just because of, again, where am I taking the trade? I'm taking it very high up. And do I want to take the setup this high up? I don't know. It's a little bit more risky. It doesn't quite make it an A plus setup. It may be a B setup, but definitely not an A plus setup for sure, just because of the trade location. And then if we move on to Thursday, took 1 trade. And again, we're just kind of like chugging higher, and the trend is incredibly strong. This week was definitely a bit more of a tricky week just because of how strong we're chugging. I mean, sellers just nowhere to be found. We're holding these VWAPs like crazy. Buyers are just really showing their hand. So therefore, after we get the market open, even though, again, these setups, and this is the type of market conditions to where you can maybe consider sizing down just because you're acknowledging that, okay, the trade location isn't the best. But I mean, sellers just not here. Like we're not, for 2 days in a row, we've not been able to take the VWAPs. I mean, look, we're broken right back above the previous New York VWAP, come back down to the daily, retest it, and you just see these buyers defending this area really heavily. So therefore, I then take the break of the New York VWAP after we found support. I love this. This is called the bounce break entry model, to where we bounce off of a VWAP of support and then break, a VWAP above us. And then boom, I mean, you could just, this was a very quick trade. I was in this trade for like 3 to 4 minutes. And then you take profit really easily. And then if we see how I closed out this Friday, same thing, 1 and done day, took a trade very early in the morning. And again, look how we're just shooting higher. I mean, sellers is not in control. So if you find like market conditions to where sellers just not present whatsoever, I mean, you can definitely buy a high here, but it takes a lot more discretion. And in all honesty, it doesn't make it A plus setups just because, again, where are we buying? We're buying pretty high, right? Ideally, we would definitely want price to at least pull back down to the previous day's New York, because at least then we can say, okay, you know what? We're buying actually at a good trade location. We actually managed to pull back. We're not buying too high. But I mean, again, guys, sellers just not here. They start to step in a little bit here, but look, buyers in the open just quickly reclaim this level. And after you just see these bulls just taking price, I mean, I just kind of get in. I get in a little bit aggressive on one account, and then I get in a bit more passively on my Top Step account, and both of these accounts were full winners. Just because of how strong this trend was. But the thing I want to emphasize in this video is how important it is to take trades in the proper locations, because that's going to really dictate whether or not your setup is an A plus setup or a lower grade setup. But if you guys enjoyed this video and would like to see more of my content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and watch this video next. But also be sure to tune into my streams Monday through Friday, every single day, market open at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time, just 15 right before the market opens. I'll see you guys all in the next video.